the 2018. It's just one of the local tourneys at
Uh-huh.
my chess club, and I'm playing against the number one guy in my club. Actually, he's a national master. Um, he's like 2300.
Mm-hmm.
So
Is
yeah,
this
we'll see how it goes.
tab game 4 or tab game 3.1?
So I was looking through a bunch of different games,
Mm-hmm.
and I was thinking, oh, this is going to be game four actually.
Okay.
And then I was like, actually, no. Let me show this game as game two.
Okay.
Only three games though, actually.
Gotcha.
I was just having a lot of fun looking at my old games.
That's great. Now I'm glad that you had a great collection to choose from. So, all right.
Yeah.
So were you playing white? You said
In this game, I have black.
black. All right. Flipping the board. There we go. Cool. Go for it.
So my opponent, I had played him in a couple of Blitz games before,
Mm-hmm.
just on like casual Saturday club chess,
Okay.
and so I knew that he played the English.
Yeah.
So the previous night before the tourney, I was preparing this specific line. So yeah, let's dive in. So he plays c4, of course. I play e5. I like these reverse Sicilian structures.
Mm-hmm.
It's very exciting and aggressive. Unfortunately, you see a lot of stuff like this, the symmetrical variation,
Mm-hmm.
which is quite dull, I gotta say.
Now,
It's very popular.
I'm curious because I've been told a little bit different that if you're playing the symmetrical English, you better be a Sicilian player. What do you think of that?
Interesting. I've never heard that
Okay.
before, but that's very interesting. Um,
Because they can
yeah, usually,
transpose you into a Maroxy bind structure.
yeah, I believe it can, which is yeah, it's very positional in nature.
Okay.
It's more positional than the reverse Sicilian.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you definitely have to know how to play against Marazzi binds,
Okay.
which I don't like playing against Marazzi binds there. That's why I switched over to e5. In fact,
Gotcha.
I don't really even play the Sicilian anymore because I don't want people to play the Marazzi binds.
Whoa, wow. I just don't want the Alipin.
Oh, the Alpin, yeah.
Alipin emojis in the chat. Come on.
Let's go. All right, so c4, e5, and this one is actually very short. It's like 20, yeah, I think it's like 20 moves or something. So it's like a chess miniature is what it's called. E5, knight c3, knight f6. So all normal stuff, unlike the last game. So all of this, this is the line that he plays with d4. The main line is g3. Recently, e4 has been a trend. This is also similar to kind of like a Marazzi bind.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the Botvinnik setup though. So white goes d3 and then g3, bishop g2,
Right.
something like that.
But the probably difference is that you actually have the ability to go for pawn breaks.
Right.
Okay.
And
Sorry to insert that in.
yeah.
I was just adding some stuff.
No, of course. It's very important to know the different lines.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, d4. So d4 is not as common, so I had to do some special prep for this.
Okay.
And so what I came up with in my preparation was e4. E takes d4, I think, is the main line, and then we get this. Bishop b4, knight takes c6,
Mm-hmm.
b takes c6, and I think bishop g5 is the main move.
Mm-hmm.
Something like this. This is also fine for black too, but I had something in mind.
Okay.
So e4, knight d2. So I have to defend my pawn. So a question to the chat here is, what should black do? Because there are a lot of different options. Black can consider knight takes d4. You can consider bishop e4. You can consider e3. And that's basically it, actually.
If it were a
But
bullet or
that's
blitz game, I consider E3.
yeah, exactly. E3 is a nice looking move. Unfortunately, this is a classical game though.
Yeah.
So, and I did do my homework actually with E3 because it looks really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Common idea to lock in White's development.
Mm-hmm.
It might be okay actually with further analysis, especially since Stockfish 13 just came out.
Uh-huh.
However,
Super cool.
it should be better for White overall.
Yeah.
Usually,
It is
it's
a
good
pawn.
to take pawns. Yeah. And white does get a big center too
Hmm.
eventually.
But what?
So
So this move that you're asking the chat here, is it more of a stylistic choice?
I would say so.
Okay.
It's more of yeah, it's more of a stylistic choice, but it's also just knowing the position too.
Okay. Um, Bishop b4 in the chat.
Yes,
Okay.
bishop to b4 is what I played.
All right.
Because knight takes d4,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't very good for black because white can just capture, and then your knight's under attack.
Yeah.
So that's kind of unfortunate.
And it seems like the position
Um,
kind of bores down a bit
exactly. And
for
that's
black.
the last thing you want to do,
Right.
especially when you have the black pieces too. You don't want to give your opponent options where they can just simplify down
Okay.
because usually they're playing for two results.
Okay.
So I went e4. My style is very dynamic for the most part.
Okay.
So bishop to b4, e3, castles. So it's important to note that white cannot take the pawn
Mm-hmm.
either way because of the pin.
Yep.
So castles, bishop e2, d6. So what is my idea here? So basically, my bishop on b4 is going to sacrifice himself. And the reason for that, well, not sacrifice, just give himself up for the knight.
Give the
I
bishop
always kind
pair.
of consider it a sacrifice, though. Yeah, because the bishop pair, Bobby Fischer is well known for saying that the bishops are actually 3.5
Mm-hmm.
compared to the knight's only 3 value.
Right.
So I consider it as a small sacrifice.
And Kasparov
So castles,
said the same thing. He thought it was like 3.25, and then a few years after he retired, he said he believes the Fisher evaluation was closer.
yeah,
So that's very
yeah.
interesting.
Generally, I think the bishop is stronger.
Hmm.
Um, However, there are players like Anand who really prefer the knights, actually. If
Hmm.
you look at a lot of his games, he prefers knights.
Yeah, so I guess it
So white
depends on
just
you how good
castles.
you are with each minor piece and the
Exactly.
position.
Yes. Yep. And a lot of people have different preferences too.
Hmm.
But generally, you should prefer the bishops over the knights. So here's my idea.
Hmm.
Sacrifice the bishop, and now bishop to f5. So I had analyzed a bunch of positions like this where black just gives up the dark square bishop
Okay.
for the knight. So what I need to do here is I need to play against white's dark square bishop.
Okay.
So that's why I played the move d6 a few moves ago, because it blunts out the bishop. And that's why I allowed this setup where white plays f2, e3, and d4. And the pawn on c3 as well blunts out the bishop.
Now, was this still within preparation?
Yes, this is
Okay.
all preparation stuff,
And obviously, your opponent is
more or
preparing
less.
against you. Was he still in preparation, probably?
It's always hard to tell if
Uh-huh.
people prepare against me or not because I play so many different openings.
Okay.
But regardless if he did specifically prepare against me or not,
Hmm.
he plays setups like these all the time.
Got it.
So basically, he didn't really need to prepare.
Okay.
Oops, let's go forward. So yeah, f3. So basically, the point is if white gets their bishop on c1 active, then I'm almost losing actually. My position would be like, well, it'd be +2 for white, or something like that. It could be more depending on how bad things get. Because imagine if this bishop on b2, well, the bishop gets to b2, and then white plays d5, c5, c4, and the bishop is just a monster on the diagonal.
Yeah.
Of course, it takes a lot of tempi to do that, but if black doesn't know what to do, that's going to happen. So I had to be well prepared.
So
Also, white played this move f3. So another principle is you want to open up the center when you have the two bishops,
okay.
or just open up the position in general. So that's what my opponent does.
Hmm.
I took, so I'm saying, actually, I don't mind an open position. Well, semi-open, because I have a specific idea in mind.
Okay.
So another question to the chat. You have four different, actually 5 different pieces you can take with. Four different pieces. Which one would you capture back with on f3?
What you guys got, guys? And no
And
stream
this,
delay at the moment, so that's good. Should be pretty
oh,
fast.
good.
All right, we got
And
Jasper Zayporteza in the chat. How's it going,
hey, what's up,
Jasper?
Jasper?
um, two players also saying bishop, bishop, and bishop.
All right, Bishop. Yeah, Bishop is what happened in the game.
All right, and by the way,
Um,
bish does not work in the chat, just so you guys know. Obvious reasons. Go for it.
yeah, Bishop is what happened in the game, but I think in hindsight, pawn takes is actually better.
I
And
like
this
pawn
move
takes.
is
It feels
actually
off, but it feels right at the same
right,
time. I don't know how to
exactly.
describe it.
So let's flip the board for a second so that we can get more of an intuitive feel.
Okay.
So when we flip the board,
it
feels really off, kind of,
because before or after the capture. So from here, okay, so captures and then
yeah,
takes. Okay, oops, excuse me. There you go.
Can you see the analysis that I do as well, or?
I'm currently on the move. G takes F3.
Okay, great.
Okay,
that's where I'm at. See,
awesome. Go for it.
So yeah, the king is a little bit open, so white has to be a little bit careful. However, black doesn't really have anything too powerful. Like, yeah, you can go like bishop h3, but that's it. You can't do anything else. You could go bishop h3 and then like try to do your knight, but of course, white's just going to see the basic threat of queen g5, and that's it. So black actually doesn't have an attack against the king. But it's actually white who has potential for an attack. You could go like king h1 and rook g1, bishop b2, c5, and try to get the pawns going in the center. But the simplest plan is just to play e4 and just push back my pieces. So this would actually be pretty interesting. I'm not losing or anything here, but I do think white is slightly better. It would be a very sharp game.
The structure kind of reminds me of I can't remember the exact line, but it's where black gives up the two bishops to play two bishops versus two knights. What's that called?
Yes, let's see.
You know what I'm talking about.
Is it any line in the Roy Lopez, or?
That sounds... No. Is it?
Or
I have to think about it. Maybe someone in the chat can help me out. It's one that St. Louis Chess Club likes to play a lot on their streams. If it comes to me, I'll bring it up again. But this pawn structure kind of reminds me of that, and that just huge center, king safety isn't too much of a concern.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Like, it's important to recognize, similar positions from other openings.
Chigorin. And then, yes, thank you, guy. That was it, Chigorin.
Oh yeah, Chigorin. Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. It is very similar to Chigorin, actually. So my opponent played bishop takes f3, which is the most natural move, I think. And then I went bishop to d3. So the thing is here, I don't want to allow e4. At least I want to allow it under my terms. I don't want to allow it under his terms.
Gotcha.
So he's going to go e4 if I don't do anything, and then he's going to go like rook to b1, put pressure on the light square diagonal. So I have to act fast here. So I want bishop to d3, rook e1, and then bishop to g6. So I thought this was kind of like a high-class maneuvering where I just misplace his rook. Just misplace his f1 rook and force it to go to e1.
Which sounds kind of odd at first, because you say you're trying to prevent e4, but some may think, well, you just help the rook push the pawn to e4.
Yeah, it's very counterintuitive. But then I go rook to, or actually, yeah, bishop to g6. Okay, so now it goes e4, and then I go rook to e8. So my point is, yes, you get your e4 move. Congratulations. However, your knight on d2 is babysitting that pawn. Your bishop is babysitting that pawn, and your rook is babysitting that pawn. So it's all about perspective, kind of, here.
Okay.
All those guys are just watching the pawn, and white can never play e5, which is very, very important.
Okay.
Or usually e5 doesn't work. I always have to watch out for e5, but in most of these positions, it doesn't work.
Okay.
Because the thing is, I have, d takes e5, and I also have some ideas when knight takes d4, c takes d4, queen takes, and then hit the king, hit the rook. So there's actually a lot of potential for tactics and stuff.
Okay.
That being said, White has achieved one extra step in bringing his dark square bishop to life.
I gotta screenshot that one with all the arrows.
Oh yeah,
Nakamura style.
Nakamura style.
I'll go for it. I'm already got it.
Awesome. All right, so here I thought he should play a move like rook to v1,
Mhm.
attacking the pawn. I'd seen a lot of setups though where you just go like knight a5 in a lot of cases, and then you play b6. Not necessarily here, perhaps, but um, rook b1 is not that big of a concern. I can also consider just the simple rook b8 actually. My rook is misplaced here, but his rook is kind of misplaced as well because it's lined up with the bishop.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes I have potential for d5 even too,
Mhm.
utilizing the pin. So yeah, there were a lot of different ideas. So I wasn't too worried. So he went queen to c2, which I don't really like because that's directly putting the queen in the line of fire.
Right. I'm
So
impressed.
I
I
just
turned on the engine just for a split second because I was curious, and if
mhm,
like looking at the board, it feels like white has the advantage,
right.
but it shows black's better. I was like, what?
Yeah,
It's
and
impressive.
that's the position that I was going for.
Hmm.
I think I played a few engine matches the previous night, so I played like engine versus engine,
Okay.
and they got this position or like similar positions, and black was just outplaying white every single time. And I was like, wait a second, doesn't white just have he has the bishop there, he has great potential with the center,
Hmm.
but the thing is, white has all of the stuff, but he can't do anything with it. It's kind of like he's dressed up with no place to go.
I like that.
Yeah. Which actually I heard that saying on one of the St. Louis channels broadcasts as well for
Nice.
like the U.S. Championship. Yasser said that.
Oh, Yasu's the best.
Yeah. So that's what I had in mind here.
Okay.
All dressed up but nowhere to go. Um, so I think my opponent just underestimated or overestimated his chances rather.
Okay.
So I went h6. Always a good idea to give your king a little bit of loot. You never know when a back rank checkmate might happen.
Right.
So even if you lose all your pieces, at least you won't get back rank mated. So knight f1. So he's maneuvering his knight. So here I was kind of befuddled. I was like, okay, so I've achieved my kind of like maximum of the position. Um, most of my pieces are developed. The queen might want to go to d7 to connect the rooks, but that's about it.
Hmm.
But I was like, so what should I do now? So I was kind of confused on what to do. But this is a classical game, so I took my time and I said, let me reroute my knight on f6. The
Okay.
knight is
We're
doing a good job.
we're getting some questions here
Um,
about the move d5.
which point, d5?
Just pretty much at any moment, it looks like it can be played.
So h6 and then instead of
Black playing
h6, just
d5.
go.
I'm sorry.
So just black playing d5 here,
Yeah, I think
for
guy would be
example.
met with like e5, which is what white wants.
Well, e5 doesn't work here because you take on c2, but
Well, no, yeah, you're right.
um,
Oops.
yeah,
Botez Gambit. That's what I'm going
that
for.
yeah, exactly. Botas gambit. No, I think there's some line where white can play c takes d5,
Hmm.
perhaps. Um, I I'm wondering if queen takes d5 works. I'm just doing this off of random intuition right now. I don't
Yep.
know if this works.
Okay.
Yes, the rooks are hanging. Rook check, but then king f2 and black has to take, and then you go here, and then black is like losing. I think that's pretty much all forced too. I
Hmm.
can turn on the engine real quick. But yeah, d5 is usually an idea. It's definitely something I have to watch out for. But remember, even if d5 works, it actually opens the bishop anyway. So remember that guy? Well, we just let him out.
So even if the position was equal, it's not something you want to do.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it just goes against the nature of the position, kind
Got
of.
it.
But oops,
Oops. All right.
little spoiler alert. Look away, guys. All
Nothing to see
right,
here.
so knight f1 and knight h7 is what I came up with. So I realized that the knight on g5 is actually really nice too.
Hmm.
because I'm still putting pressure on e4, and I'm attacking his light squared bishop.
Yeah.
So knight g3 and knight g5, and now he blunders actually. So he goes bishop to g4. First of all, what is the point of bishop g4? I don't really understand this move. Well, I do understand the basic ideas to go like bishop f5 or knight f5. But it's kind of awkward to do such things because I have the pin down here. So
That very strategic move that you did earlier with bishop d3.
yeah, bishop d3. Oh, just like, are you
Kicking that
saying
rook.
reroute the bishop?
No, I'm saying that earlier when you played bishop to d3, kicking that rook to.
Oh, right.
Yeah, like that's all going according to plan for you now.
Yes. But yeah, my question here is, what is the point of bishop to g4? I didn't really understand the point, and the answer is there isn't a point to this move.
Okay.
It's, I mean, he might. I think he does want to go bishop to f5 and try to get some trades, but honestly, I wouldn't mind if I got the double pawns because I guard the f5 square from his knight. So I'm not really concerned. So now it's black to move and actually win, just like that.
Oh wow.
Go from positional to pretty much a winning advantage, especially against humans.
I see a potential f5 with a fork, but I don't see when it's gonna happen.
F5 is definitely down the road. It can't
Takes,
happen right now, but
takes.
that's a big move down
Oh,
the
it does
road.
work. Oh wow. So trade fast and then f5.
Yes.
Okay.
So knight takes e4, exclam. Why is it an exclam? Because white has more attackers on the square.
Mm-hmm.
So black, actually, he played, yeah, rook takes e4. So this is kind of weird if you're looking at this. So what happens on knight takes e4? Do you go f5? Do you go queen h4? Do you go rook takes e4? Do you go d5?
That's a good question.
Bunch of different moves to consider here.
Oh, great move in the chat. Oh, that's a spoiler to me. Take a moment, guys, in the chat and YouTube.
Yep.
All right, queen h4 exclam.
Yes, queen h4 exclam, exactly.
X.
Um,
Double exclam.
Actually, does it work here though? I haven't checked this specific line. It probably does. Because I was just looking at queen here for a second, but you just take the bishop, and then you're much better.
Yeah.
Yep, so yeah, that works as well. But what happened in the game? What I did was actually wait. Does it work? Let me cheat for a second. Turn this guy on.
That's perfectly fine. You know.
Let me cheat for a second. So yeah, knight takes e4. Knight takes e4.
Yeah, queen h4.
Yep, knight takes e4 wasn't good. That's why. So I guess I was just thinking to myself, knight takes e4 wasn't really a variation.
Okay.
So yeah, white has to play rook takes e4 because otherwise, yeah, queen h4 is too devastating. But that's what happens anyway. So the funny thing is here, you would like to play bishop takes e4. That's kind of the more natural response because you're just winning in exchange, sort of. But after bishop takes e4, knight takes e4, queen h4, what happens here? Well, actually, it looks like I gotta turn off our good friend here because it's going to give away all the answers.
Yeah, it's all
good. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does white do in this position? White to move and hold
Excellent
the game.
YouTube content, by the way.
Yeah.
White to move.
White to move and hold.
That's tough because there's a mate threat in there.
So you got queenie one mates. That's a huge problem. Can't allow mate. You have the bishop on g4. No one's guarding him. The knight on e4 is also loose, but you can protect all of those threats with one move. Only one
Queen
move.
e2? I mean, it feels wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Queen
Oh,
e2.
okay.
Um, which is makes sense once you see it, but at first, it's very scary. There are all those threats and everything.
Right.
Um, this is what I was thinking in my calculation at first. I was like, yes, I can do this. I get queen h4, and but then I was like, oh, wait a second. He just goes queen e2.
Oh.
So I had to do the other move order. So this is where move orders come in.
Okay.
Um, so rook takes e4, and it's important that this bishop is still alive.
Mm-hmm.
Knight takes e4, and then queen h4. And then we get this position again. And I have this mate threat, most importantly.
Bishops are better than
And
rooks.
so, yeah, exactly. Queen e2 and f5 now. So here's your f5 move.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I
so
would not
even
have
here,
calculated all that. That's way too much.
yeah, it's a lot of calculation. You have to see f5 because otherwise white just goes queen e2 and it looks like he's okay still.
Mm-hmm.
Because like if you go, I was thinking about rook e8 for a second here, but it doesn't work. Knight f6. Oops.
Yikes. GG.
And yep, GG. So yeah, you have to go f5.
It's actually kind of a double protection there now. That's so nice when you get that f5 push in.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, it's really kind of weird too because you're combining like at least two different tactical ideas with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Usually a tactic is just one tactic, straightforward. But this you're combining multiple tactics.
Which makes it that much stronger. Yeah.
Exactly. And you have to do it too, otherwise you're in a worse position. So f5, and even here after bishop takes f5, in knight g3, the position is only -1, which means, black is just up a pawn. However, it's more than that, though, because I do have an attack going, because look at that rook on a1 and the bishop. The bishop is he finally can breathe. But the thing is, it's too late. I'm just going to bring in my pieces.
Yeah, and it's not even a bishop pair anymore either. So
right, exactly. Bishop pair is gone.
All that work
so
for
he
1 point advantage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, chess is hard sometimes. Other times it's easy. But practically speaking, I felt really good. I felt close to winning, even though the computer says it's only -1. That's because with best play, it's -1.
Oh, yeah.
That's another thing, too. You have to realize that white's not going to make the best moves, most likely.
Right.
So it's practically speaking lost, especially since the time control was actually only 55 minutes with the 5-second delay. And my opponent was already down to like a minute here or something.
Ooh.
He spent most of the time calculating all the tactics.
All the tactics
so,
that just don't work.
Exactly.
That's the worst thing. When
rough.
you're investing all that time and then your time's gone, you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, that's the worst. You have to make sure you manage your clock well. So yeah, the final move of the game, guys. Black to move and put the game away.
Put the game away. Oh, man.
The queen on h4 still plays a big role. But how do you use her?
All right, let's check out hanging pieces here. I'm going to give
Yeah,
that
so
as
the
a hint
bishop
to the
on-
chat. I think I found it.
Exactly.
There's a small hint here.
It's really nice, too, once you see it.
Yeah, that's really cool. You got it, guy. Ready?
All right,
Go
yes. So the move is, drum roll, please.
Knight takes d4.
Knight takes d4, that's right. Exclam.
That's rude.
So actually, I was kind of like, oh, yes, this is a nice move and everything if he takes.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, you get this whole fork and everything. But I was thinking to myself, well, what if he doesn't take? What if he just continues the game and then we have these opposite color bishops? It's like, oh, really? I gotta work more. I just got 2 pawns out of this. Like, I'm not making him resign. But actually, he resigned right here. And so the thing is, he resigned because not only is knight takes d4 winning a pawn, but there's the threat of knight c2 and hit the bishop, hit the rook. So he's just losing the whole house, actually.
Nasty.
And if he ever goes like queen e6, I can always go bishop f7 or king h7.
How about queen b2?
Queen b2, I still go knight c2, and after queen takes b7, then I go like rook f8 or something.
I wasn't looking at that. I was just simply trying to save pieces with like this.
Oh, that's true. You do save the piece, actually. Was there a cleaner? I think there was a cleaner way there, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe not. Let's
You're
see.
probably
Queen
right.
B...
It's just something that popped up. That's all.
No, that's a great move. It's probably the only one to really continue the game.
Mm-hmm.
Knight c2, rook f1. Yeah, I think this was his best try, but at the very least, I can just take, and then queen takes pawn. And
Okay.
his knight is just dead, actually. And I'm up a bunch of pawns.
Yeah, he just put
And queen c5 is a threat, too.
Yeah,
Just
it's already
trade the
over.
queens. Yep. Rook f8. So yeah, that was the second game.
All right, awesome. Very nice. And
Thank you.
so this is a change in psychology.